The existence of ghosts has been questioned by many over time. However, it's believed that people have spirits inhabiting their bodies until they die. Then the spirit leaves the body. Can you imagine seeing this? It surely would be chilling. Ready to join the Americano team? Then make sure to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss any of our interesting videos ever again. With that being said, let's begin.
The Tulip Staircase has its very own ghost. Many of the famous and believed ghost sightings or paranormal occurrences happened in grand old houses. Houses that have a huge amount of history and many lives that both began and ended there on the premises. These huge, stately homes and manor houses that either once were or still are homes to the rich and wealthy people of our world. I mean, why wouldn't you stick around after you died if you could live forever in a house that some of us can only dream of staying in for a night? Houses like the one in our next photograph. At number 3 on our list of the top 5 chilling photos of real ghosts that we dare you to see, we have the Tulip Staircase ghost. This picture has been hailed as only one of a handful of ghost pictures that is still yet to be debunked or proven as false in any way. Believers maintain that this picture taken on the Tulip Staircase in the Queen's House, which is part of the National Maritime Museum in London, might actually be one of the few very real ghost photos. The photograph was taken back in 1966 and still, to this day, has yet to be proven as a fake, unlike many others that have been in that time. Experts who have analyzed the picture have confirmed that regardless of the ghost-like image within, the photograph itself hasn't been tampered with in any way. The Tulip Staircase photograph was taken by Reverend Ralph W. Hardy during a visit to the Queen's House in 1966. Hardy was visiting with his wife, who had recently seen a lovely picture of the staircase in a magazine and wanted to take a similar one. When they got to the museum, however, the couple were disappointed to see that the staircase had been roped off from the bottom, which meant that there was no way that they could recreate the photo that Mrs. Hardy had seen. So instead, Reverend Hardy decided to take a snap of the staircase from below. Neither him or his wife would have expected that there would be anything special about the photograph, but when they returned home to British Columbia, they found that one of the pictures they had taken from their trip was out of the ordinary. The picture that the Reverend had taken of the Tulip Staircase, which had been empty at the time of the shot, had what seemed to be a ghostly figure wearing a dark robe and gripping the banister of the staircase. The Queen's House is over 400 years old, and even before the picture was taken, the building had a reputation for being a place of mysterious occurrences. Staff members at the Queen's House have reported over the years hearing phantom footsteps. Some reported having been touched by a ghostly figure, and others even said that they heard singing but found that there was nobody there when they went to look. There are several bloody rumors attached to the building's past, which all lend more credence to the idea that the National Maritime Museum may well be haunted after all. Proof that it may in fact have at least one visitor who has not left for a very long time. Freddie Jackson's ghost would never miss a photo op. The wars that have been fought for many a reason across the face of our planet have left countless people dead. Imagine the actual numbers connected to just how many men and women have given their lives for their cause in all countries on Earth. Staggering, right? Now, how many of those people do you think would have passed on to the afterlife peacefully? Not many, you would imagine. Well, that's probably why there are a great number of ghost stories that involve doomed soldiers that have lost their lives in the heat of battle. In at number 2 on our list of real ghost photos is this intriguing photograph, which was taken way back in 1919. It was first published in 1975 by Sir Victor Goddard, a retired RAF officer. The photograph shows a group portrait of Goddard's squadron, which had served in World War I, at the HMS Daedalus training facility. An extra ghostly face appears in the photo. In the back of the shot, there's an airman positioned in the top row, 4th from the left, and behind him, we can clearly see the face of another man. It's said to be the ghostly face of Freddie Jackson. Freddie was an air mechanic who had been accidentally killed by an airplane propeller just 2 days before this picture had been taken. His funeral had taken place on the day of the group picture. Members of the squadron easily recognized the face as that of Freddie Jackson, who was a beloved member of the group. Some of them suggested that Freddie, unaware of his death, showed up for the group photo anyway. It would seem that even death couldn't keep this young soldier from showing up for duty. Excuse me, there's a ghost in your back seat. Whenever we lose someone close to us, it's never easy. especially if the person in question's a beloved family member. And though many different cultures carry out the burial and funeral process in their own different ways, the custom of taking photographs gained popularity, as it's often a time when families get together. We don't want the person that's gone to have left us, and sometimes these photographs that we take show that they don't want to have gone either. The photo that we've given the top spot on our list of the top 5 chilling photographs of real ghosts that we dare you to see goes to the so-called backseat ghost. Mrs. Mabel Chinnery was visiting the grave of her mother one day in 1959. She'd brought along her camera to take photographs of the gravesite. After snapping a few shots of her mother's gravestone, she took an impromptu photo of her husband, who was waiting alone in the car. At least, they both thought that he was alone. But when the film was developed, the couple were more than surprised to find out that the picture showed a figure wearing glasses sitting in the backseat of the car. Mrs. Chinnery recognized the image of her mother, the same woman whose grave they had visited the day the shot was taken. A photographic expert who examined the print determined that the image of the woman was neither a reflection nor was it any type of double exposure. He said that he would stake his reputation on the fact that the photo was genuine.
Body on the stretcher. This is the case of a patient in a clinic. It's unknown why, but several doctors were taking care of him. As you see in the video, the body is lying on a stretcher while the doctors do their best to keep him alive. When they're done, everything seems to be in order, so they step out of the room for a moment. The most curious thing about this video happens when we can clearly see the boy's soul leaving the body and rising. It looks like steam emerging from him and is quite curious. But the climax of the video arrives when a doctor comes back into the room to check on his patient. Upon reviewing the boy's vital signs, he declared him dead. They couldn't understand what happened. When they left, the patient was stable, and now he wasn't. Only after seeing the recordings, they realized the young man's soul was no longer there. Many times, science doesn't understand this type of event. What do you think happened in that room? Car crash. Car accidents are usually quite unpleasant. This driver who was riding along a highway is proof of this. Maybe he wanted to go on vacation, or he was just going somewhere in the city. Apparently, the ground was a little wet, and that didn't favor him. The saddest part of this comes when this car overturns on the road and gets shattered. Moments later, the police and some firefighters took part to get the man out of the car. Unfortunately, they realized he had died. Meanwhile, someone was filming everything that was happening. If you pay close attention, you can see how a kind of cloud emerges from the car and ascends. It was the driver's spirit. A lot of spectators surrounded the crash scene, but it seems that no one noticed the spirit. The person who recorded the incident sure was very shocked to see what he or she had filmed. And you, what do you think about this video? Do you believe in spirits? Ghost in a hospital. A very ill woman was in a hospital in China. Although the doctors did their best, she was in a very delicate situation. Within hours after getting there, she died. Afterwards, her body was taken to the hospital morgue, waiting for her relatives to claim it. The place where it was moved to looked quite dark and dim-lighted. There was nothing but the body, and it was placed on a stretcher. The most curious thing happens when it gets up and its spirit comes off. It was as if a smoky silhouette began to float. It levitated for a moment, and then it left the corpse completely, ascending until it disappeared. It seems like this spirit wanted to stay there until the very last minute. Surely, this video was shocking for the guy at the surveillance room. It's also very scary for us to watch a soul coming out of the body like that. What do you think of this spirit and its body? Tell us in the comments. A bad vacation. After an entertaining vacation, a family was traveling along a road to get back home. What they didn't expect was that in the middle of the road, the car would lose the brakes. Unfortunately, they ended up crashing into a mountain and were injured. The parents and their youngest son were able to get out of the car despite the hit. The older boy, on the other hand, couldn't get out. Moments later, the firefighters showed up at the scene to help the boy inside the car. He was in a very bad condition. However, they did try their best to get him out. Alongside the victims and the officers, there was a curious man in the place recording what was happening, and he captured an impressive image with his camera. If you pay close attention, you'll notice some people around the vehicle. Minutes later, a kind of cloud with a humanoid shape comes out of the seat where the boy who was trapped was. Clear evidence that his spirit had left his body and was ascending. A couple of minutes later, when they finally managed to get him out of the car, he was no longer alive. The homeless guy. In most countries, there are people who live in the streets. At night, they look for a place to sleep in. This next case is about a man who traveled through the same area and frequented almost the same places for years. People from the area already knew him. They knew that anywhere near that block was the perfect place for him to spend the night. However, in one of those places, everything changed. After a day full of walking and food searching, the man was very tired. So at night, he found a place good enough to place some cardboard. He lied down and began to rest. The street where he was had a CCTV working 24/7. Moments after falling asleep, we can see something very frightening happening. His spirit was coming out of his body. It was a silhouette that perfectly matched his features. At first, it looked like it was sitting. Then it got up and started walking away, leaving the man's body behind. Did the spirit ever return? What happened to him? Something's coming out of the car. A boy was driving his car down a long road and enjoying the ride. The sad part takes place when he has a fatal accident and his car ends up overturned. The reason why he crashed is unknown. A short time later, the police and authorities went there to see what had happened and put everything in order. We can see a uniformed man witnessing everything and doing his job. They saw the boy was still inside the car, dead. In addition to the officer, there was a spectator there recording everything. But if you look closely, you can see the boy's spirit coming out of the car. It looked like little white smoke that left the place and descended. At first, no one noticed it was a spirit. However, the cameraman noticed it when playing the video later. Don't you find it scary? For many, it's surprising to see how a spirit leaves home and ascends. What happens when we sleep? This is the case of a young man who was tired after a long day of sport practicing. Apparently, he was extremely tired and decided to go to his room. He made himself comfortable in his bed and took a nap. It seems he was being pranked since a camera was in his room. Luckily for us, it allowed us to watch almost the entire room. The curious thing about this video happens when the boy who is sleeping begins to move his hand gently. Then this movement gets a little stronger. Finally, we can see how the soul leaves his body and sits on the bed. It had his exact same silhouette. After this, the humanoid shape stands up and starts walking until it leaves the boy's room. After watching this, we can see the boy in the bed stop moving. Was he dead then? Is his soul ever coming back to him? We hope you agree with us. This looks very scary. We're sure of one thing. The person who placed that camera in that boy's room got a big surprise when reviewing the recording. A soul's shadow. This video is very particular, and we're sure it'll surprise you. Usually, if we want to take a nap, we look for the most comfortable place in our house, like this man did. After a tiring day at work, he decided to get home and sleep a little. Upon entering, he laid down on a couch at home and began to rest. He seemed quite comfortable there. Meanwhile, one of his sons decided to prank him and to get his camera on him. What this boy didn't expect was this. Minutes after the man was in a deep sleep, his soul began to leave his body. As we can see, a large shadow with a human shape left his body and sat down. Later, it went up and walked to the other side of the house. Surely, nobody would take naps if they knew their body is soulless during that period. Did this soul go back to that man's body? Probably this video is quite spooky for the viewers, and we're sure they had questions. What happened there? Is that man still alive? A girl's spirit. In our world, a lot of studies and experiments have been carried out to discover many different things. However, this could be the spookiest of all. It consisted in taking out the soul of a girl's body. As we can see, she was sitting in a chair alongside some doctors who were preparing her. She was in a place that seemed quite dark. She was sitting there without moving. A few moments later, we can see how her soul detaches from her body and begins to act on its own. It's a silhouette similar to a cloud. It was white and seemed to walk sideways. The girl, who was still on the chair, had a rather pale color appearance. Those around her were extremely surprised by what they were seeing. They were in the front row watching what was happening with the girl and her spirit. One of them used a camera to record this bizarre event. And you, would you dare to be part of the audience in an experiment like this one? Will a girl's soul return to her body? Afterlife. This is the case of a girl who had bought a new motorcycle. She was excited for a new acquisition, so she decided to go for a ride. Apparently, she enjoyed the adrenaline at high speed. As we can see in the video, the surveillance cameras on the highway recorded the terrible accident. A truck was making a wrong turn, a turn that was also very reckless. While crossing the highway to go to a street, the driver didn't notice that the girl on the motorcycle was coming his way. She was driving so fast she didn't have time to stop. The truck was still moving forward. So, sadly, she crashed into the truck and her body flew through the air and fell on the grass on the side of the road. Her motorcycle was in a very bad condition. The girl was lying on the floor and looked pretty injured after crashing. The most curious thing is that if you look closely, you'll be able to see how her soul leaves her body. In the video, you can see a cloud ascending. In this image, you'll see her spirit with all of her features leaving her body.